Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. So we're going to talk about Parsha Noach. We're going to talk about Noah and the flood, and we're going to talk about the tower of the Migdal Bavel, or the Tower of Babel. And okay, let's jump right in. So in the Hebrew year of 1656 is when Hashem brought the great flood onto the world. And unfortunately, the people of the world at that time, they were involved in three really great averas. So the first was Avodah Zarah. So instead of listening to Hashem and worshiping Hashem, they started making up their own idol worship, and basically that's to do whatever they wanted. Another thing was Shikfus Damim. There was great bloodshed. There was killing. There's not respect for life. And then there was Zima. There was great immorality. So the Midrash tells us that, like, what Hashem wanted is, Hashem wanted Pruruvu. He wanted people to be fruitful and multiply, and he wanted people to live all over the world. He created this beautiful earth for us, and he wants people to live all over it. So one thing that was happening is, like, a man would take two wives. He would have one wife for the purpose of having children, and the other just for his own pleasure. People would exchange wives. They would arrange marriage contracts between men and animals, and they were legalizing forbidden relationships. And the judges themselves were corrupt. And the final straw was a thing called Hamas, where people were stealing from each other, and they were even stealing just little amounts, less than a pruta, the smallest amount, so you couldn't be charged with any crime, but just to steal from each other. There was no respect for each other, and everyone was just seeking their own pleasure. And scarily enough, it seems like we're living kind of like in that world right now. And that was the final straw, because this was the opposite of what Hashem envisioned for the world. This is the opposite of why he created the world. He wanted everyone to live peacefully together. So Hashem was forced to bring this great flood, and he did a reset on the world, and he restarted the world with this tzaddik named Noach and his three sons and their wives. So Noach had a son, Ham, who was the father of the African nations, and Japheth was the father of the European nations, and then Shem was the father of the Middle Eastern and then the Eastern nations. And the world began again. So Ham had a son named Cush, and then Cush had a son named Nimrod. And Nimrod rose to be the first great king. He started the first empire over the earth. So they built the tower, the Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel, was built 100 years after the flood. So let's look into the parsha a little bit. Let's see the conditions and why they built this tower and what was going on. So we see a pasuk in Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11, the first pasuk Aleph. It says, "Vayehi chol haaretz safa echas udavarim achadi." So it says that the whole earth was of one language, and Chazal tells us that everyone spoke Lashon HaKodesh. They all speak Hebrew. They spoke the language that Hashem created the world with, that Hashem wrote the Torah in. And they had a united purpose. They were all united. And then it also, the Meforshim say it's not only Echad Udavarim Achadim, united. They were united in one purpose. They were Chadim. They were sharp. They were sharp against Hashem. So Nimrod rose to power by one thing he did is he played on people's fears of the flood. So the simplest way to not have another flood or not, be punished by Hashem is just to listen to what Hashem says. Follow Hashem's Torah, learn His Torah, do His mitzvos. If you do, like, why is Hashem giving us this Torah, giving us these mitzvos? He's teaching us how to have the best life in this world. He created the world. He has all the design for it. And the Torah is the design. And this is the way we can have the most enjoyable life. We can be good people. We can get along with everyone else. And the Torah is the way to do that. But unfortunately, people have they have the Yetzer Hara that's misleading them and telling them they want to do what they want to do. And this is the rebellion against Hashem. And this was the rebellion that Nimrod started. And even his name, Nimrod, is Chazal said it's like Himrod, like he caused everyone to rebel against Hashem, and he played on everyone's fears that Hashem would punish them, and he got them to undertake this project. So let me see if I can find the pasuk. So the pasuk it's pasuk Daled, and they say Vayomru. So they say Hava nivne lanu ir umigdal. Come, let us build a city and a tower. V'rosho v'shamayim, and its top will be up in the heavens. V'naseh lanu shem, and we will make for ourselves a name, pen nafutz al panei kol haaretz. Because if we don't, we're afraid, at least, we'll be dispersed across the whole earth. So what is going on with all this? And what are they doing? They want to build a city. So it's interesting because we see that they didn't really build this city. Like, all they focused on was just the tower. And then they were making for themselves a new name. So why do they want a name? So we're going to go here in the Mefarshim, and the Bechor Shor and the Radak, they say they wanted to acquire a name. Because the popularity of the tower would spread from afar, giving them fame and renown, something they could not achieve if they were dispersed. That's according to the Bechor Shor and the Radak. Now, this is an interesting one. The Chizkuni says that they wanted to gain mastery over the entire human race. The fame of the tower would spread, and all would come to see it. So Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he says that their intent was to establish themselves. They did not call on others b'shem Hashem. They didn't call in the name of Hashem to the service of Hashem, but their own service. Naseh lanu shem. They wanted to make for themselves a name. So they saw their desires as an end instead of a means, an attitude that must end in moral decay. In their arrogant stress on the original accomplishment, they said the old people must have stone, but we can build without stone. So next they came to believe that they could get rid of Hashem and his laws of morality. So I saw this in a shir by Rabbi Yisachar Fran, and he brought this idea forward that one of these ideas that they were talking about is this world government, this new world order, and we see it in our days. So first, let's go back a little bit to 1656, and that's really when the so-called Enlightenment began to be felt in the Jewish world. And Baruch Spinoza was actually put into Cherem. He was excommunicated in the year 1656. So what is this Enlightenment? This Enlightenment it's the same philosophies of the Tower of Babel. It's the same thing. It's like the rebellion against Hashem. People want to do their own, will. And then it's these people that want to rule over the world, for themselves. They want to build a so-called New World Order for themselves. So 1656 is when this new enlightenment, this new atheism, this idea began to be felt. And then all the designs start to go forward to start building this. And then, in 1776, we see the establishment of the United States. And this is like the model for this Enlightenment country. And now we see these things popping up all over the world. We see like the European Union. We see, I think there's an African Union. There's a North American Union. I'm assuming there's some kind of South American. So there is some attempt by a group of people to build this world government. And it's a government so they can do, their own, basically so they can do their immorality, and they feel like there will never be any punishment from Hashem. So we see this in the United Nations. Like, this is the basis of building this United Nations, and it's the same philosophy of the Migdal Bavel, of the Tower of Babel. It's the same philosophy. It's this trying to unite the world and gain control over the world. And then it's this rebellion against Hashem. So it's really fascinating because across from the United Nations building itself, there's a thing called the Isaiah Wall. There's a little park across from the United Nations. It's like right across from all this. And on this wall, it quotes the pasuk from Isaiah 2:4, I think it is. So I want to go into Yeshaya Hanavi, Isaiah the prophet. I want to read 2:3 and 2:4 because I think it's fascinating, because here we're going to see Hashem's nevuah, the prophecy that he gave us, which is the opposite and the fight against this new world order and the coming of Mashiach and the true uniting of the world. But there's two battles. There's either uniting all the world to go against Hashem, or there's the role of Mashiach to unite the world to live with Hashem in peace in the way that Hashem created the world and wants the world to be settled and to be lived in peace in everyone. So the two paths are this uniting the world for this new world order and uniting everyone against Hashem and in a world of immorality, or uniting the world in a world of morality and Torah mitzvos and kindness, in a world where people are doing kindness for each other, in a world of wisdom and learning to live, with Hashem. So let's look at this. So it's so fascinating. This wall is exactly opposite the United Nations, and it's the two philosophies competing with each other. So So we see in Yeshaya in chapter 2, Pasuk 3, he says, V'chalchu amim rabim v'yamru lechu v'na'aleh, and we will go up El Har Hashem. So here's another na'aleh. We will go up and build a city and a name for ourselves, but in many nations will go and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Hashem, meaning the Har Habayis in Yerushalayim, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And we're going to go up to the mountain of God, of Hashem, El Beis Elohei Yaakov, to the house of the God of Yaakov, of Jacob. V'yorenu midrachav v'neocha ba'or chasav. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk his paths. Ki mitzion teitzei Sora, as we said on Simchas Torah, because out of Zion that the Torah will come, the Torah will go from Zion, from Yerushalayim, with Devar Hashem in Yerushalayim, and the word of Hashem from Yerushalayim. And then the next pasuk is the pasuk that's quoted on the wall across from the United Nations, and it says, "V'shafat bein hagoyim." It's interesting that safa achas, that one language. So now we see the word "v'shafat bein hagoyim," and he will judge between the nations. V'hochiach le'amim rabim, and he will rebuke many nations, many people. V'chitesu charvosam le'itim, and they will beat their swords into plowshares. V'chan nisosehem lemaz meiros, and their spears into pruning shears. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, and nation will not raise up a sword against another. V'lo yilmedu od milchama, and they will no longer learn the art of war. Beis Yaakov lechu v'neilcha ba'or Hashem, and the house of Yaakov, of Jacob, let us walk in the light of Hashem. So it's fascinating. So right there, etched in stone, in this little park across the United Nations, is the two competing philosophies of the world. The philosophy of Edom and the Tower of Babel, of a elite group of people trying to rule the world and living their own immorality and corrupt judges. And the whole thing we see right now, trying to get this world government fighting against Hashem, that they want to do what they want to do and not live in the way the world was designed. Or it's going to be eventually, the path of following Mashiach, the great king that will be, that Hashem will appoint in Yerushalayim and Israel, and that will lead the nations of the world to this great peace. Get rid of all these nuclear weapons and biological and chemical and all this destruction, and live in a world of peace. So there it is. There's the great battle. May we all join in and fight for Hashem and Torah mitzvos and a world of kindness and good and shalom and peace. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you again soon on Sweet Good Torah.